Let us explore the big mistake people make curing stress. Together, let us relaxingly recite. If the first noble truth was the pervasive nature of suffering, or more accurately, stress, then the second noble truth is its cause, or actual exacerbation. Evolution has gifted us with a dopamine-oriented system in our underbrain that rewards for procreation with fleeting feelings of pleasure that, as such, keep us coming back for more. It also rewards for finding warmth when it's cold, shade when it's hot, water when we are thirsty, food when we are hungry, and rest when we are weary. Why? For all these things keep us alive long enough to pass on our genetic traits, and that is of primary concern to our genes, the puppet master behind the scenes. The religious folks sometimes describe the primary drives of this dopamine-oriented reward system as pushing, pulling, and clinging. Perhaps we're just crass enough to prefer the 6 F's. When we're exposed to anything being a phenomena deep within our viscera, we seem to ask, should I fuck this, feed on this, fight against this, flee from this, faint before this, or fawn over this? Yes, this mechanism could occasionally aid in our survival, but a life defined only by survival is rather shallow and unsatisfying. You see, we also have an oxytocin-oriented system in the basement of our brain that rewards for cooperation with feelings of fulfillment. When this system is our default mechanism, life could be pretty sweet. But sometimes we get stuck in our competitive dopamine-oriented system, and life becomes, as Thomas Hobbes insisted, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In his third noble truth, the Buddha offers us liberation, but liberation from what? From the tyranny of our competitive, dopamine-oriented survival impulses, freedom from its job of tyrant, and instead its relegation to the role of a mere tool. Harmless, benign, and at times even useful. This is why the Buddha taught mindfulness and meditation. One moment, if you please. So what I'm going to do is hit paste and make sure this is actually on the screen. Cowabunga. Alright, let's hit save. Having completed this morning's opening lesson, it's time for us to shift gears. It is Rey Skywalker Sunday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, we're going to be playing with the latest iteration of very easy meditation practice text, or sadhana, if you're nasty. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. The 90% of people, yes, even those who call themselves meditation teachers, 90% are defined more by Yang's religious or irreligious patriarchy than Yin's spiritual matriarchy. They're defined more by being rigid than flexible, defined more by being fearful than loving, defined more by being superstitious than rational, defined more by being controlling than laid back, defined more by being elitist than egalitarian, defined by being more cryptic than lucid, defined by being more competitive than cooperative, defined by being more cruel than kind. In light of this unbalanced dichotomy, it should come as little surprise that the majority of so-called meditation teachers implore their students to actively train in focus and analysis. Now, the only way we can perform those two actions is by relying upon discrete neural pathways, such as those found in either the medial or dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. The problem is that when we over-rely upon the prefrontal cortex, when we exhaust the prefrontal cortex, we open ourselves up, we heighten our vulnerability to the symptoms of depression, and we inadvertently trigger our amygdala, which is the seat of both the anxiety and aggression that are the polar opposites of the peace and the love that most of us expect to cultivate through meditation. The good news is that neither the prefrontal cortex nor the amygdala comprise the entirety of our central nervous system. Case in point, every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we automatically access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to help us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Every time we exhale, we automatically access the parasympathetic nervous system divided between the lower third and the upper third of this same spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and even less defining. Patriarchy's elitism has convinced many of us that we must force our knees and our hips and our ankles to sit in the full lotus posture. However, archaeologists have revealed that the most ancient Buddhist statuary reveals not the full lotus posture, but instead merely the quarter lotus posture, wherein one leg rests upon the other in a manner reminiscent of the two pieces of bread comprising a sandwich. To assume this posture, it's important to remember that our knees are only hinge joints. It is our hips that are ball joints. Therefore, we must articulate from the hips and not the knees. The bottom, it's important that just as we have the capacity to twist our hands, we can twist our feet, and we want to make sure that the soles of our feet point up, which makes it much easier on our ankles, especially if we're sitting upon a folded yoga blanket. Now, the first time you attempt this posture, it'll most likely be asymmetric and ungainly, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to be flawed. However, reconcile yourself, resign yourself to practice this for at least 5 minutes, once every 12 hours or so. Do so, and within a week or two, your body could very well remember the range of motion of its youth. Given the importance of our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, a question could be asked. What's the most efficient way for us to cooperate with them? The answer is quite simple. Every time we inhale, we can silently and mentally recite the 3-syllable verb, noticing. Every time we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite the 3-syllable verb, relaxing. After a minute or two, we may wish to practice the 1-syllable version of this, and that's just fine. During our inhalation, we can silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this and oopsie. And during our exhalation, we can silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb is. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I check for questions approximately once every 15 minutes or so. Excuse me. Just want to make sure everything's working right with the audio. Testing, testing. Sometimes it goes bye-bye, and it makes for very disappointing recordings. Excuse me. let's review the lessons we can learn from the iconography of this archetype, known in Tibetan as Kuntuzong. Well, let's just jump back for a second. The nudity of Kuntuzong Mo reminds us that the key to mindfulness is that we notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. The color of Kuntu Zongpo reminds us that as we relax into our exhalation, that which we noticed during our previous inhalation can feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. And a good English teacher will remind us that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. So we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could be tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand? The beauty of this archetypical couple, Kuntu Zongpo Yabyum, reminds us that the highest love is the spontaneous and uncontrived fringe benefit of awareness and release. The stability with which Kuntu Zongpo sits reminds us of centeredness. The abandon with which Kuntu Zongmo sports in tantric union reminds us of spontaneity. This centered spontaneity is also the fringe benefit of the love which flows from awareness and release, and is the key to the expedient means of a Buddha. The most efficient way for us to cooperate with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems that function as the seat of mindfulness and meditation, or for us to silently and mentally recite the three-syllable verb noticing during each inhalation, and silently as well as mentally recite the three-syllable verb relaxing during each exhalation. After a minute or two, we might wish to switch to the one-syllable version, which is simply the silent and mental recitation of the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation, and the silent and mental recitation of the monosyllabic verb ease during each exhalation. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist mindfulness or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I check for questions approximately once every 15 minutes or so. Let us review the lessons we can learn from the iconography of the archetype known in Tibetan as Dorje Sempa. In Dorje Sempa's right hand, he holds a Dorje, or a Vajra, or a diamond, that reminds us that every time we inhale, we are wired to notice, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. We're wired to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. We are to be completely vulnerable to whatever we spontaneously notice, whether that which we notice is external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. In Dorje Sempa's left hand, he holds a bell, which is known in Sanskrit as a gantha. This reminds us that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as resounding, yet as not graspable, as the tone of a bell. If you wish, you could play with a 3-syllable exercise, silently and mentally reciting noticing during the inhalation, and silently and mentally reciting relaxing during the exhalation. If you prefer the 1-syllable version, you could always silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during the inhalation, as well as the monosyllabic verb ease during the exhalation. Together, let us practice right now. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to today's evening meditation class, as well as group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.